Hi friends, welcome back to my kitchen. My name is Jay and it feels like fall today. It is nice and chilly outside. I have all the windows open. I have every candle I own lit and it smells and feels so good in the house right now. So that makes me want to be in the kitchen doing some cooking and some baking. I want really comforting recipes that are going to feel good in my belly and just give me all the fall vibes. So we are making a pot roast and we're making a homemade carrot cake. And I think both of these recipes are just gonna be so yummy today. So for the pot roast, we are using a Pioneer Woman recipe for the most part. I'm adapting it a little bit, but it's mostly her recipe. And then for the carrot cake, we're doing Sally's Baking Addiction. I've talked about her in a previous video. I love her recipes. She's got a recipe for just about everything, and they've never let me down. So I've never made a carrot cake before. We're gonna give it a shot. I've made plenty of pot roasts, but I've always made them in the crock pot. This time I want to try making it in the oven. Her recipe has it in the oven. However, I don't have a Dutch oven. I don't have a pot that can go from the stove into the oven. I wish I did. Someday I will. So I'm gonna try using my cast iron. This is the biggest cast iron pan I own. It's a hefty boy because you want to cook the vegetables a little bit, brown them, and sear the meat on the stove and then put it in the oven for optimal flavor. So cast iron is both stove and oven approved. I'm gonna try doing it this way and just see what happens. But most importantly, I'm in the kitchen, I'm in a good mood, and we're gonna make some delicious recipes today. So let's get started. I'm gonna get this moved out of the way. It can go ahead and sit on the stove. I've got a plate here, and I've got a delicious cut of meat right here. I'm using a chuck roast, a Black Angus chuck roast here. So we're gonna go ahead and get this baby onto the plate. I also have my oven preheating to 275 degrees. You want to cook this kind of thing low and slow. Ooh, that fell apart. Interesting. All right, I'm just going to go ahead and pat this dry with a paper towel. Just get some of that excess moisture from when it was in the bag off. And now we are going to liberally pepper and salt our meat. So I'm going to go ahead and just get some salt in my hand here. And salt her up. All right, now I'm going to do the same thing with the pepper. This is really good quality pepper. I love this pepper. It's called butcher's pepper. All right, our meat looks gorgeous. I'm gonna go ahead and let this rest right over here so that we can move on. I'm really excited about this because we are gonna be using onions and carrots and rosemary that I grew. Look at these tiny little onions. My onion harvest did not come through very, they were not large this year, let's just say that. But you know what? I'm happy with my golf ball sized onions and we're going to cook with them. And I'm still gonna be proud of them. So I've got those guys and I'm just going to, where's my favorite knife? I'm just gonna cut them in half. All right, now, if you guys watched my first preservation day of 2022, we took care of my carrots. I grew these from seed and I wrapped them in a clean towel, put them in a Ziploc bag and put them in the fridge. So let's see how they're doing. Yeah, these look awesome. They smell really good. Here, let me see if I can show you. Beautiful carrots. Gosh, I love carrots. So I did wash them, but they still definitely have some dirt on them. So I'm just going to pick out, I don't know, 3 of them, I guess. Rinse them one more time. And then we're going to chop them into 2-inch pieces. And I'm going to go ahead and put the rest of these back. No, I want more carrots than that. I think I'm going to do, let me do one more. There we go. Let's go ahead and get these chopped up. I always keep my carrot ends, and I have a bag in the freezer where I put like veggie scraps. This is actually my second bag. I have another bag that's full for the day that I finally have time to tackle making vegetable stock for the first time. I will eventually do that. It's on my list. All right, so this cast iron pan that we're using today, I actually haven't used it in, I don't even remember the last time I used it. So I gave it a good wash and I liberally layered olive oil on here. Now, the first thing that we're gonna put in this pan are our onions, and you want a little bit of olive oil in the pan for that. I have plenty in here to get started. So we're gonna go ahead and turn this to medium heat. Unlike her recipe, I'm also going to add a little bit of garlic. I often like to get some garlic and separate and peel the cloves and just keep them in a Tupperware container in the fridge. So I've got 2 cloves of garlic left, and I'm gonna use those as well. I just kind of cut them into chunks. All right, my cast iron is really hot but not quite smoking yet. So I think now's a good time, and I'm just gonna throw in the halved onions and brown them on both sides. Just gonna kind of slide them around a little bit, make sure that they don't get stuck and burn. Oh, I love the smell of cooking onions. I'm gonna go ahead and throw the garlic in with it as well, I think, and they can brown together at the same time. Just gonna keep everything scooting around so nothing burns. I've got a pair of tongs here. Let's take a look at the onions. So they're starting to get a bit of a nice brown color. All right, let's go ahead and flip the onions over. Keep everything moving around. All right, let's go ahead. Now that this has been cooking in here for a few minutes and it's nice and browned, let's go ahead and remove both the onions and the garlic to a plate. I'm actually going to turn the heat to low just so it doesn't get out of hand. Oh my gosh, this smells so good. All right, I still have a decent amount of olive oil in here, so I'm going to go ahead and throw in my carrots. And we're going to do the same thing to the carrots that we just did with the onions and garlic. We're just going to let these brown up a little bit. Just kind of scooting them around, getting them coated with the olive oil. All right, these look good. I'm going to go ahead and put these on the plate with the onions and the garlic. Okay, for this next part, I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit more olive oil. Let that get heating up in there. Now, it's time for us to add our meat. Get that moving around a little. But here's what happened. When I opened up the bag, it split into 2 pieces. So I've got this whole separate piece and then the big one. And that's fine, I'm gonna cook them both in the oven, but for searing the meat, I'm gonna do just one piece at a time. So I'm gonna start with the big boy, and we're gonna go ahead and sear that on each side for 1 minute. Searing your meat helps to lock in the moisture and helps keep your meat really tender and moist during the long cooking process that it's going to experience in the oven. Let's go ahead and get this flipped. This is going to be so good for dinner tonight. I'm going to try to get it on these sides here. I'm just going to hold it. Alright, so I think that looks pretty good and seared on all sides. So I'm going to remove it and put it back on the plate that it was on. I'm going to add in another splash of olive oil. And we're gonna do the little second piece there that came with it. Look at how beautiful and delicious that looks. I am literally sweating. I don't have a really great bottle opener, and I tried to get this bottle of red wine open because I need it. I won. I am the victor, but barely. Okay, so this is really seared. All right, so the next thing we're going to do, so we have our meat seared on both sides. It's done. I moved it over to the plate. Now we've got some really delicious brown bits on the bottom of this pan here, and we want to get those up. So I'm going to put in about a cup of red wine, roughly, I don't know. And then using a whisk, you want to just kind of get up all those tasty bits from the bottom of the pan. Oh, that smells super nice. If you don't want to use red wine, you can use beef broth or beef stock. That's fine too. With me using cast iron especially, I'm being very gentle. I'm not being aggressive at all, but these bits from the bottom of the pan are coming up really easily, so it's not a problem. Okay, I've got all those yummy bits scraped up off the bottom of the pan. So now I'm going to put the roast back in. And we'll see how this works. I have a feeling this piece that is smaller is going to end up being kind of really well done, so I might actually remove that before the end of the cooking process. Next up, what you want to do is fill your pot or whatever you're using with beef broth halfway up your roast. So I've got some organic beef bone broth here, and I'm going to pour that in until it's halfway covering our roast. The beef broth with the red wine is going to be very, very yummy. Okay. Yum. All right, and now we can add our carrots and our onions back in. I don't have a ton of room here because I'm using a pan and not a pot, but I think it's gonna be okay. I hope it's gonna be okay. All right, now this needs to be covered, and again, because I don't have a properly sized pot, I'm going to just cover it with foil. Try to do this without burning myself. Oh, let me turn the stove off. All right, this was a 3-pound chuck roast, so I'm going to put this in the oven for 3 hours. And at the 2-hour, I'm gonna put a timer on for 2 hours, and at the 2-hour mark, I'll check it because I might have to remove that smaller one, we'll see. But I'm gonna just put her in here and let her do her thing. Shoot, you guys, I forgot to add in my homegrown sprigs of rosemary. So I'm going to use my oven mitts to very carefully do that because I definitely want this flavor in there. And you want to make sure that if you're going to add any herbs, thyme, sage, rosemary, whatever you choose, that it's in liquid. You guys, I am a hot mess express. It is rough around here. So I had a vet appointment because I had to learn how to give Cheeto subcutaneous fluids because he's in renal dysfunction and we're trying to save his life. So, just learned how to poke my baby. Came home, wanted to get started on the cake. The pot roast is still going in the oven. Wanted to get started on the cake so I can throw that right in the oven when the pot roast is done. Realized I didn't have any eggs. I need 4 eggs. So thank you to my neighbor Sammy for the eggs. Really appreciate you. After I got the eggs from my neighbor, realized I don't have any more all-purpose flour. Well, I have like a cup. I need 2.5 cups. So I'm using about a cup of all-purpose flour, and then I have cake flour, which we're making a cake, right? So hopefully this is fine. we're going with it. I have no choice. I'm making this cake. All right. Let's make this cake. We want to go ahead and combine our dry ingredients, and we have 2½ cups of flour, and the recipe says to spoon and level, which means you're not taking the scoop or the measuring cup and scooping the flour out. You're spooning it in and then taking the spoon and leveling it out so that you have an exact amount of flour. So let's go ahead and do that. We have 2 teaspoons of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, ½ teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of ground ginger, 1/4 teaspoon of ground nutmeg, 1/4 teaspoon of ground cloves, and 1½ teaspoons of ground cinnamon. So I'm just combining these quickly, just using a large spoon because I still only own 1 whisk and it is in the dishwasher. Dirty. All right, we're gonna set this aside. And then in another bowl, we're going to add ½ cup of regular white sugar, 1½ cups of packed brown sugar. I'm using light, but you can use dark if that's what you have. And you want that to be packed. There is half. And then her recipe says 1 cup of vegetable oil, canola oil, or melted coconut oil. I would prefer to use coconut oil. I'm new to using coconut oil. This is the first time I've ever owned coconut oil, and I used it in a recipe the other day. I really liked it. So I think we're gonna do that. I'm gonna go ahead and measure out a cup, but I'm going to melt it and put it in last because when I used it the other day, I put it in first, and by the time I was ready to start combining my ingredients, it wasn't melted anymore. So learned my lesson there. So I'm just gonna at least measure it out and have it ready. And I did also, I needed to melt it that other time too, and I did notice that when I melted it, the volume was the same. It didn't, the volume in the measuring cup did not decrease when I melted it. Next, we're gonna add 3/4 cup of unsweetened applesauce, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. So I'm just gonna do a little splash. Oh, that was a big splash. We've got the 4 eggs, courtesy my neighbor. Well, I had 1 egg, and she gave me 3. Soon, I'll just be able to go into my backyard to get eggs, but not yet. All right, and now I'm gonna go ahead and heat up my coconut oil. See what I mean? I don't think you can see it super well, but the volume stayed the same when I heated it up, so I think that's really cool. So I'm gonna go ahead and pour that in. And we're gonna get these ingredients nice and combined. We don't need a mixer for this one. I'm just gonna use the spoon. And basically what we're looking for here is we just don't want any big, huge lumps. We just want like as smooth of a batter as we can get, which mine's not gonna be super smooth because of the coconut oil, but try to get out all the brown sugar clumps and things like that. Okay, so these 2 things are finished, and then we have 2 more ingredients. Of course, carrots, and we're still going to use my homegrown carrots, and I'm incredibly excited about that. 2 cups of carrots. I'm just gonna see what I can get here. This does have a measure on it, so the 2, let's see if I can get you to see it. Hopefully. That's what we're going for. We'll see. All right, there we go. So we're at about 2 cups there. So I'm gonna put these away, get them off my counter. They have served me well today, my homegrown carrots. I've got a few left. Definitely not enough to get me through winter, that's for sure. I'll have to dedicate a lot more garden space to it next year. We have our carrots, and then traditionally you would use pecans, but I don't have any. I have walnuts, and I think that that's just as good. I only have a few. I think it says to use a lot more than what I have. 2 cups of chopped pecans. I have probably a cup of chopped walnuts, but you do what you can, you know? All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and get my dry ingredients mixed in with my wet. I think you could probably just pour it all in, but I'll at least start out a little slowly here, just so I don't make a huge mess. All right, we've got that all combined. Now we're going to add our carrots. Look at how vibrant. Those are so bright. I love it. That is so cool. And we're going to add in our nuts. And we're just going to fold this all together. Oh my goodness, I cannot wait to eat all of this. Oh, it's gonna be so yummy. All right, that looks nice and combined, I believe. Want that pretty nice and distributed throughout. Let's get our baking dish prepared. All right, now you absolutely can make this a fancy layered cake by using 9-inch cake pans, however many you want to use. That's really not practical for me and for what I want this cake for, so I just have this big dish. I honestly don't even know. I never know what the sizes of things are. And I like these a lot. They're Pyrex because they've got lids, so this will be perfect for storing this cake, and we'll eat on it throughout the week. So I'm just gonna go ahead and spray this really well with nonstick cooking spray, and then I'm gonna pour in my batter. Okay, this looks great. I'm gonna go ahead and cover this with its lid because our pot roast is not done yet, and I need to be able to preheat the oven to 300. So as soon as I can do that, I'll pop this sans lid in the oven, and next time I see you, we'll be eating dinner. Okay, you guys, I have my handsome Tom here with me, and we are gonna taste test this pot roast. Freaking dog hair everywhere, all the time. You want to, when you're able to pull it apart with your fork, that's how you know it's done. And then when I decided I was going to make this for dinner, I thought maybe I would want to make like some kind of crusty bread to go with it, but then I remembered that I had these honey cornbread muffins in the freezer from that cornbread video. I'll link that down in the description if you want to watch that, and I thought it would pair perfectly with this, so let's go ahead and try it. It's really good.
Yes, it is. I also ate the onions, and you know that's new for me.
I'm slowly getting him to eat more vegetables, but he's doing it.
Yes, I am.
What about the carrots?
Carrots are good.
They're nice and soft.
Mm-hmm. It's all good, actually.
I grew those carrots.
Oh, yeah?
And I grew those onions.
Mm. Right out of the ground.
Yep. All right, I'm going to take a bite with a piece of muffin. Cornbread, I should say. Those cornbread muffins are so good.
Yeah. With the muffin myself.
Yeah, they're sweet.
Mm-hmm. Pretty good.
All right, you guys. Well, this was a win. You like this?
Mm-hmm.
All right, and I'll put it in my recipe book for the future. I will say that making pot roast in the crock pot is easier, but making it in the oven is way more flavorful. This is the most flavorful pot roast I've ever made, for sure, hands down. Super delicious. Making it in a cast iron worked out fine. So if that's all you have, it worked for me. We're gonna finish eating and watch an episode of Cobra Kai. I've got the carrot cake in the oven. It said to bake it for 30 to 35 minutes if you're making 2 9-inch rounds, and I just have it in that sheet. So I'm gonna check it at 30 minutes and see how it's doing. But we'll taste test that together too. All right, so we have our cake in the oven and it's almost done. I want to go ahead and make the frosting for the cake. So I've got a large bowl, and I also do have my hand mixer for this one. You could use your stand mixer. I don't recommend hand mixing this unless you have no other choice. That one would be a little tough. So we've got a full stick or half a cup of unsalted butter. I'm going to go ahead and put that in the bowl. And then we have 1 block of full fat cream cheese. And we're gonna mix that together on medium-high speed until it's nice and smooth. Okay, we've got that nice and mixed together. I should also mention that the butter and the cream cheese were truly room temperature. I did that one correctly because I hate trying to blend things when they're not truly room temperature. It sucks. Those were. Now we're going to add in the vanilla, and normally I measure things with my heart, but when you're making frosting, you kind of do want them to be exact, otherwise you're having to add more powdered sugar, you're having to add a splash of milk. I don't want to do that. So I'm going to add 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla extract. That is the timer for the cake, so I will check that here in just a moment. Okay, I'm putting the frosting on hold so that we can see if this is done. It was in for 35 minutes. I checked it at 20 and it was nowhere near done, so I put it in for another 15, and the center is nice and firm. It's not jiggly anywhere. Let's go ahead and test it with a toothpick and see what happens. Came out totally clean. So our cake is done. I'm gonna go ahead and just set it over here. I'm gonna turn the oven off, set it over here on the stove, let it kind of relax, and we'll finish up our frosting. Okay, so we added in the vanilla extract. Now we're going to add in 4 cups of powdered sugar. The recipe says to beat this on low for 30 seconds and then increase the speed to high for like 2 minutes. The reason you want to do that is because if you went in here guns a-blazing and turned this on high, you'd have a cloud of powdered sugar around you. So always start it on low, get it a little bit incorporated, and then turn the speed up, and that way you won't make a huge mess. And that is what happens when you follow the recipe properly the first time. This is gorgeous. I wouldn't do anything to this. It's the perfect consistency. So now I just want to wait for my cake to cool down a little bit, and then we will frost it.
Because I'm going to freeze these for at least 3 days, but it'll probably be more like a couple weeks. So I can kill any potential weevil eggs that might be in this grain. And right here we've got 25 pounds of organic oats. This is 50 pounds of organic flour, and then this is 25 pounds of brown rice. So these will go directly in the freezer right now.
Okay, we got our cake all nice and frosted. It looks delicious. However, I have a lot of frosting left, and I kind of figured I would. I made the full amount stated in the recipe, but I only have 1 sheet cake. I did not make a layered cake, and I definitely think she wrote the recipe to have enough frosting to frost not only the exterior but also the layers. And that's fine. I did that on purpose because the recipe does also say that you can freeze frosted cake layers for 2 to 3 months, which tells me the frosting is safe to freeze. And, you know, upon reflecting, there's no reason in my mind that you couldn't freeze it. There's no ingredients that would give you any problems. So I have a ball freezer Tupperware container here, and I'm going to scoop the remaining frosting into here and put it down in the deep freeze, and I'll use this as long as it keeps like I think it will. The next time I need to frost something, and now I'll have frosting made up and I won't have to. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that prepared and throw it in the freezer, and then I'm gonna cut up some cake and Tom and I are gonna try it. Now we have cake. This is my very first time ever making carrot cake. Like I said, I really trust Sally's Baking Addiction recipes. Her website's great. I'll leave it down in the description. So let's try this. Do you like carrot cake?
I do.
That's good.
Carrot cake's good.
Yeah, I like it too. And it's still warm. It just came out of the oven. It's got walnuts in it.
It's very good.
Yeah, you like it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm
Especially
so
that
glad.
it's warm.
Mm-hmm.
It's very good.
Good. It's super moist, like super moist. Mm-hmm. The frosting's a little cream cheesy for me, but I could have put a different type of frosting on it. I stuck with the traditional. Usually when you order a slice of carrot cake, it comes with cream cheese frosting. Cream cheese frosting isn't my favorite, so it's not the recipe's fault. It tastes just like it should. But, no, the cake is really good. Cool.
Cool.
Well, I'm glad that you like it because you're going to be eating it this week.
I'm okay with that.
All right. Oh, here, let's hold up our plates and smile. Cool. All right, well, this was a success. I'm really happy with both of these recipes, the pot roast and the carrot cake. I'll leave the links for both down in the description. I got them both offline, so it's not one of those things where you have to have the cookbook. But I hope that you give them a try and enjoy them too. They're perfect for that like really nice, cool fall day, very warm and, I don't know, comfort recipes type situation. So thanks so much for hanging out with me today. If you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing. If you liked this, give it a like, and I can't wait to see you in my next video. Have a great day. Bye.
I want to make sure that nothing's in front of that, by the way. What's in front of your face?
Oh, no, it's nothing.
Are you sure about that? Mm-hmm. Okay, because look. See, it's there.
Mm-hmm. No, it's not.
Okay.
It's the balance thing. It keeps so like if I were to be walking around or something, the camera has a feature where it keeps it always straight.
I was making sure of that while you were talking. I was like, wait a minute, there's something in front of it.
Thank you. That cake is really good.
I like it a lot.
And it's got carrots that I grew.